Shalom, Israel. We the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Start out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. It's the Friday night Lashawan Qadash class where we break down the scriptures from a linguistics perspective. Which is something that your Christian pastor is and forever will be ill-equipped to do because they don't give a damn about the people that they serve. The Christian church claims to be the quote unquote religious authority of Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Christianity has become the number one religion in, I believe, the entire world. I believe 70% of the world is Christian. Yet it doesn't teach the Bible. It doesn't teach what Christ taught. It doesn't teach the culture of the people that were in the Bible. It doesn't tell the story of the people that were in the Bible in its entire context. It doesn't teach anything about the Bible. So any denomination, whether you go to the Catholics, the Christians, any denomination of Christianity, whether you go to the Jewish, the synagogues, they don't teach the truth according to the Bible. Especially Christianity, because again, that's the number one religion that not only is it the number one religion in the world, but it's the number one religion that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans funnel into. They don't teach the truth according to the Bible, because if you know the history behind Christianity, if you know the history behind the Christian church, the Baptist church, it began with your oppressor appointing. First they appointed an oppressor to oversee the Christian church, and they appointed somebody who is now your Christian pastor. They appointed somebody to teach the lies that your oppressor taught under the threat of severe punishment. So that's where your Christian church comes from, which is why, fast forward to 2024, you go to any Christian church and tell them, hey, Christ is a black man, for example, just as an example. You go to the Christian church and tell them Christ is a black man, and they're going to fight you tooth and nail to say either Christ doesn't have a color, Christ is Middle Eastern, or it doesn't matter what color Christ was, or even they might even battle you to say that Christ is white. That's why they're going to do those things, even though all through the, in the book of Daniel, in the book of Revelations, it says that Christ was a black man, that his prophets were black. The book of Solomon, the book of Ezekiel, the angels were black. You could see all throughout the Bible, Jeremiah, you can see all throughout the Bible that the prophets, the angels, Christ, and even the description of the Most High is as the spirit of a black man. But the reason why, even though all of those truths are in the Bible, your Christian pastors, your Catholic priests, and even those in the Jewish synagogues, they're going to fight you tooth and nail to try to say that Christ, either doesn't have a color or it doesn't matter. Because Christianity was rooted in lies. And the only way that Christianity can still continue to fight to survive is to continue to teach those lies, because that's the foundation of it. Which is why, to bring it full circle, why they're ill-equipped to teach Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans the truth. Salaki, as I share my screen. But we in the ISUPK, the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, we've been teaching the truth according to the Bible since 1969. We have nothing to, we have no agenda other than just to reveal the truth that's been hidden for so long from Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So we have no incentive to lie or hide anything. Because who gives a damn about, who gives a damn about the condition of Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans? Who gives a damn what we say in the first place? Who gives a damn? We ain't got no incentive to go out there and risk our lives to be called a hate group. And, we have no incentive to, go out and risk our, we have no incentive to lie to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans about who they are, or try to make anything up, which is why we don't do too much filler, like your Christian pastor, again, like your Christian pastor does, where they do a lot of filler talking. What we do is we give you the history, like everything that I said up here on this podium today. You know what I mean? Everything that I said was history. Everything that I said came out of the Bible. You know what I mean? What your Christian pastor is going to do, they're going to start off reading a little bit of the Bible, but then they're going to go into a whole bunch of filler and song and dance. You know what I mean? Because why? Because they have an incentive to lie to you. Again, the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, we don't have no incentive to lie to you. We don't have no incentive to risk our lives to lie to you, other than, well, you know what I mean, to gain the kingdom of heaven, to build the kingdom of heaven for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to finally get out of hell. That's the only incentive that we have. You know what I mean? And the tool that we have to reach that incentive is in this Bible. If only we would read it. You know what I mean? And to be able to read this Bible in its fullness, to be able to understand it in its fullness, you have to understand the context. And the context is in the language, you know what I mean? Which is what this class is all about. So if you got any questions, you know what I mean? If you got any live questions, you go ahead and type them in the chat. Shalom Yahweh Shem Yahushua Barakathum to all the brothers. Shalom Yahweh Shamar Lathan by Shem Yahushua to all the sisters. You know what I mean? If you got any questions, you know what I mean, you could put them in the chat. And I'll address them. I'll address them the best as I can as I see them. In the meantime, we're going to pick up from where we left off in Sabbath service last week. So we read, can't remember where we started. I believe we started somewhere in Genesis chapter either 36 or 37. Let me double check, make sure I'm correct. Salakia. Bear with me 1 second as I confirm that. Second, Salakia. 36. All right, so we ended on, or we started off in Genesis chapter 36 and verse 39, and ended in Genesis chapter 38 and verse 8. As you may be able to recognize on the screen, I have the book of Genesis chapter 38 and verse 9 shared, I mean, which is where we're going to be picking up. And there's a lot of, and it's really good, you know what I mean, which is, you know what I mean, I believe I mentioned it either last week or the week before. I mean, brothers and sisters are able to pick up their language, the Lashawan Qadash, or as the world knows as the Hebrew. Both are correct, but we're able to. These brothers and sisters are even the children. You know what I mean? But these brothers and sisters are able to pick up their language so quickly and so easily is because they show up. They show up and they practice their language. They practice their culture. You know what I mean? So, if you want to learn your language and your culture, show up. You know what I mean? If the only way that you can make it to class, I know brothers is coming from all over the place. So a few hours away, and the only way that you can make it, because you got your slavery, the only way that you can make it is to put class in your ears and your headphones. If your job allows it, your slavery allows it, and just listen. You know what I mean? Show up that way. But as long as you show up, you are going to understand your language, because this is you. This is your culture, Black man, Hispanic man, and Native American man. This doesn't belong to anybody. This doesn't belong to anybody else. Just as much as the Bible doesn't belong to anybody else. I mean, the Bible is a composition of stories, laws, statutes, and commandments, and letters written and addressed to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You know what I mean? And it uses the same slang and the same language and the same lingo that we use today. So the way that it was addressed to us then, and because it was addressed to us then, written by the same people who have the same spirit as us, we're the only people who can not only are we the only people that was addressed to, but we're the only people who can understand it to this day. That's why your Christian pastors and your you know what I mean, your Catholic priests and your Jewish rabbis, they read these scriptures and they don't understand it, even though the words are right there in their face. They don't understand it because they don't understand the spirit and the language, the slang that the Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans speak in. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. Again, if you got any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. You know what I mean? Or if you just want to say shalom, you know what I mean? You want to just say what's up, go ahead and put it in the chat. And we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. I'm gonna go ahead and enlarge my screen. If you got Bible Hub, or if you got Bible Hub, go ahead, open it up. go to the book, chapter, and verse that we starting off in. If you don't have Bible Hub, go ahead and download it. I know it might be a couple new brothers and sisters in here. Go ahead to your app store, whatever device you're using, Apple, Android, or you might be on a laptop. If you're on a laptop, as you see I am, uh, you can go just to the internet, whatever internet browser you prefer, and you can go and type in Bible Hub in your browser and open it up like you see I got on the screen, and then go to the interlinear portion. Go to the interlinear portion, which is going to have the English and the Hebrew lined up next to each other, or the Greek. It also has the Greek as well. You know, I mean, if you're a first time user, it's 9 times out of 10 going to take you to John 3:16, because that's the Christian staple scripture that they misinterpret and misunderstand, because again, they don't understand the Bible, because they weren't commissioned to they were commissioned to teach you a lie. Just like we were, just like, you know what I mean? I know we just celebrate. I know a lot of our brothers and sisters just got done celebrating Thanksgiving. The same way we were given garbage to eat, we were given scraps to eat during our captivity, is the same way we were passed down Christianity. So the fact that, you know what I mean, in our captivity, just to make it plain, in our captivity, we were given, I'll use chitlins for example. You know what I mean? We all know what chitlins is. We know what they smell like. You know what I mean? Chitlins is the intestine and the how can I say this? It's it's the large intestine of a pig. Long story short, is where the feces come out and it moves through the body. You know what I mean? That's where the waste is passed through the disgusting animal's body. You know what I mean? And your oppressor gave you that in your captivity to eat. And fast forward now, we got them red buckets in every Walmart and every HEB and every Kroger, you know what I mean, for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to buy, bring it to their house, and, you know what I mean, foul, you know what I mean, overwhelm your house with that foul smell of feces, where you cleaning feces out of your food and dousing it with hot sauce. You know what I mean? That's the same way that Christianity was passed around in Black, Hispanic, and Native American households, where they gave us that garbage in our captivity. And because we became good slaves, like Christopher Columbus predicted, like the colonizers predicted when they came over and, you know what I mean, established Thanksgiving, we became good slaves, to where at one point they had to force those things on us. They had to force uh, all these, you know what I mean? They had to force Thanksgiving on us. They had to force chitlins on us and the scraps, the pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster on us. Now we do it willingly. Now we are good Christians willingly. Now we believe the lies of Christianity willingly. Now we eat the garbage willingly. You know what I mean? So that was the whole plan. All right. But let's get right into it. That should have gave you enough time to, you know what I mean, open up your Bible hub. It's a lock you. Uh, we'll go ahead and continue on. All right. Matter of fact, close this. All right. So as I pull the scripture real quick, make sure you got your pens and you know what I mean, pens, pencils, your notes, notebooks, your learning utensils, and all of that, uh, so that you can retain this information. And we're pretty much, I believe last week I shared the screen of one of our previous classes, uh, with the 4 basic steps of reading any Hebrew phrase. We're just going to be, again, it's always going to be rinse and repeat of those 4 steps. It's always going to be rinse and repeat. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find that as well so I can share that. But it's always going to be rinse and repeat of those 4 things. Uh, if you don't understand any of those 4 steps, just, you know what I mean, say something. Say something so that we can get you up to speed, so that we can hone in on any one of those 4 steps and, you know what I mean, get you to where you need to be. But it's a lot here. Salakia. All right. But reading the Lashawan Qadash is just gonna be rinse and repeat of those 4 steps. So if there's any one of those 4 steps, as you can see on my shared screen, the top right hand corner says 4 steps, and in the bullet points it says there's a root word 2 to 3, means a root word has typically 2 to 3 characters. It could have 4 depending on, but that usually means that there's which brings me to the next bullet point, a preposition attached to it. So if a root word has more than 2 or 3 characters, it means it typically has a preposition attached to it, which is a character that comes before a root word. And then in your notes, you should have a list of your prepositions and your possessives, which brings me to the next bullet point. Your possessives is a character that comes after a root word, but you should have a list of both of those things. Your prepositions and your possessive work together to kind of give your root word context, as well as which brings me to the 4th bullet point, tenses, which gives it a little bit more context, which gives it a little bit more depth. You know what I mean? So that you can understand what you're reading. You got past tense, present tense, future tense, which is also what you got on the board as well. You got in the top right, or it's like your top left-hand corner, you see past tense or I-bar, which means past. And then below it, you got each conjugation for each point of view, you know what I mean, so to speak. So if you want to say I, and the root word that we used in this example was see, which is ra'ah in the Hebrew that you see in the blue. If you want to say I see or I saw, which is how you would say see in past tense. If you want to say I saw, you would say anya, which is the word for I in Hebrew. Ra'ah thaya. Right. That's the conjugation for past tense, and that's the conjugation for past tense, right? Meaning, or from the point of view of I. You, atha, ra'atha, right? That's how you conjugate root word from the point of view of you in past tense, right? And so on and so forth. He, hawa'a, ra'ah. Hawa'a, he or it doesn't have a conjugation, so to speak. It's just ra'ah by itself. All right. So that's just to give an example. Just to give an example. But let me go back to this. So when we read through the Lashawan Qadash and Bible Hub, we're going to be using those same steps. All right. So we're going to be using those 4 steps that we went over. We're going to be able to identify the root word, which is going to be 2 to 3 characters. See if there's a preposition attached to it, which is going to be before the root word, the possessive, which is going to be after the root word, and any tenses. So past, present, future, doing tense, servile tense, or what you would identify as feminine tense, because most things regarding the feminine will be in servile tense, or feminine or young man, or, you know what I mean, anything like that. Anybody that has a lord or is talking to their lord or dealing with somebody who outranks them or rules over them, you're going to see a servile tense. You might see a category tense, like in father. You know what I mean? You don't have more than one father. You just have, you have categories of fathers though. So you have a grandfather, your great grandfather, you have your father, your literal father. You know what I mean? Things like that. And then you got your pluralization tense. That's just off the top of my head, the ones that I can remember. But we'll go, any of them that I missed, we'll see them throughout as we read in the Lashawan Qadash tonight. But the point is, those are going to be the things that we always are going to use. It never changes. It never gets more complicated than that. You know what I mean? The English language, I've heard from all different walks of life, from pretty much every single nation of people, that they say that the English language is the most difficult to understand. You know what I mean? Because the rules constantly change. You learn one rule in first grade. You learn one rule in first grade, and then you learn in second grade English that there's an exception to that rule, or that rule doesn't matter. And then in third grade English, you learn another rule, and then in fourth grade English, you learn that rule doesn't apply all the time, or that this rule is Like they always adding things. You know what I mean? Always adding things, taking things away. And like for example, I believe there was a big debate about whether the proper way to say a word was converse or conversate. Whether like if you wanted to say I'm having a conversation with somebody, the proper way to say that was to say I'm conversing or conversating. There was a big debate about that. But if you look it up, and I'll just to prove my point, right? Just to prove my point, I'm gonna go ahead and look it up. Converse definition, right? Converse. Okay, here we go. So it says lock you. So it says to converse. Lock you was just here. To have a conversation with somebody. So this is the definition of converse, right? Lock you. Oh, the lock you. All right. So this is the definition of converse. To have a conversation with somebody, right? So you would say that this is the proper way to say this word, converse, right? Right. So if you say I was having a conversation with somebody, you would say I'll converse with this brother. I was conversing with this brother. You know what I mean? That's the word that you would use. So anytime somebody said conversate, you would automatically, you know what I mean? I know there's some, we like to show how scholarly we are. We like to show how scholarly we are, especially when it comes to one another. You know what I mean? So whenever a brother say, "Oh, conversate," and uh, whenever we say whenever we hear a brother say conversate, you will want to correct that brother. Be like, "Okay, well, no, that's not how you say that. The word is converse because we just read it in the dictionary, right?" Well, now here in 2024, you see the word conversate, which wasn't a word. You know what I mean? So many years ago, it means the same thing: engage in conversation. Right. So just pulled that up just to show you how complex and how nonsensical the English language is. But as you see, as you're going to see tonight, you know what I mean, as you stick around, you're going to see that we're going to be using the same 4 steps that we've been using since, you know what I mean, since 1969, where, I'll just pull it up again. We're going to use the same 4 steps that we've been using since 1969. You're going to be able to identify your root word, see if there's a preposition attached to it, a possessive, and any tenses within or attached to the end. All right. It's going to be the same all the way throughout. All right. There might be some new concepts that we might need to add to our belt. Like, for example, we just, like you see on the board, we just went over past tense. I barred. In a later lesson, we're going to go over future tense, which is I will. I will. Right. We haven't gone over it yet. So when we see it, it might be a new thing. So when we do see it, I might have to go into it, break it down a little bit, and it might be new to you, but that it's not a so it's just to bring it full circle, it's not we might have to add something to our notes, add a new concept. Like we just went over past tense, we might have to add future tense, we might have to add present tense to our notes. If there's any root words that you're not familiar with, you might have to add that to your vocabulary. But you're not gonna see very many instances where you're not going to see any instances where you're not following these 4 steps. Now with these 4 steps, it's going to be uh it's not going to be necessarily every single one of these steps, but you might see one or two, a combination of one, two, three, or all four in any given phrase. We're gonna get right into it. All right. So let's see. So I'm gonna read through in the Lashawan Qadash, and then I'm gonna go back and break it down line by line, or phrase by phrase rather. So lock you. Bear with me. Let me go ahead and enlarge this screen. So lock you. Bear with me 1 second. All right. All right. So in the Hebrew, the book of Genesis, chapter 38 and verse 9 in the Hebrew, Wayadai, Awanan, Kaya, La'a, Lawa, Yahaya, Haza, Hazarai, Wahaya, Ba'a, Al, Ashak, Achiowa, Washa, Shalaka, Wa, Shachaf, Arataza, Laba, Balt, Labalapia, Na, Nathan, Zarai, La'a, Yawa. All right. So a lot of what I just read is this is a good start. I mean, a lot of these are just pretty much basic concepts, so we should be able to break this down pretty easy. All right. Should be able to break this down pretty easy line by line. All right. Lock you, bear with me 1 second. All right. And if you could see online, I mean, if you're watching online, I'm gonna highlight as I go and break it down. If you could see it pretty good online, just let me, or if you can't see it online, rather, just let me know. We're gonna get into it. All right. Real simple. Why you die. All right. Off the top of my head, we should or we already know you die means to know. You die means to know. All right. To prove that, if you're not sure, like some words, you know what I mean, some phrases, the goal of the Lashawan Kodash or this Lashawan Kodash class, the goal is to be able to understand it to the point where we can speak it to one another. The whole point is to be able to have a conversation with one another. All right. So there should be certain root words, certain words that you should be able to recognize off sight, right? But you're not, you know what I mean, you're not gonna know every word off sight. You know what I mean, that's just any language. You know what I mean? We've been speaking English for how many years? And you know what I mean, we could open a book right now and there's gonna be guaranteed there's gonna be a word that we don't recognize in that language. All right. So that's just how that goes. All right. But as you continue to show up, as we said in the beginning of the class, as you continue to show up and put that brick in and put that work in to be able to understand and learn your culture, there should be certain words that should be recognizable to you. All right. So this is just one of them to me that stands out. You die. You die just means to know. All right. And to prove that, let me enlarge the screen. To prove that, uh You go back to prove that if there's ever a time where you see a word that you don't know, that you don't recognize offsite, you can just click this concordance code and it'll separate the rest of those 4 steps from the root word. So you see I got here, yadai means to know, like I said before, to know, to perceive, to understand, to acknowledge. All right. But again, just to reiterate, uh, if you click that concordance code, it's going to separate these 4 steps for you. So you see in the top right hand corner, it says the 4 steps. The top one is the root word because that's going to that's like the foundation. That's why it's called the root. That's going to be the part of the phrase that is going to be it's going to carry the phrase. It's going to let you know the context of what the phrase is talking about. And then the rest of it is going to give you a little bit of context as far as past, present, future tense, uh, point of view, and ownership. I mean, things like that. But the root word is going to be, I mean, what you need to understand to be able to understand the phrase itself. But you click that. The reason I've shared this screen again is if you click that concordance code, it's going to take away all the additions, the preposition, the possessive, and the tense, and it's just going to leave the root word. So then you can attach the rest of it and know what's what. All right. So I'm going to share this again. So we know by clicking this concordance code, yadai means to know, Salakia. So with that being said, since we separated the root word from the phrase, then that just leaves what? It just leaves this preposition or this Salakia, this character in the beginning. This character in the beginning we know is a preposition because we know that your preposition, and I'm going to share this screen again. Salakia. We know that your preposition, which is the second bullet point, comes before a root word. So because this character comes before the root word, you know that that's a preposition. So now you just go to your preposition notes and you'll see that why as a preposition means and no, right? Or and new, right? So why you die and new on a one, it's like your awanan, which is onan in the Hebrew, right? Awanan, kaya means that. La'ah means no or to negate something. You want to negate something, la'ah is how you would do it. All right. Or it means no, not. Let's see what it means. Let's see. See what this concordant code says. No or not. Okay, like I said before. All right. La'ah means no or not. Lawa means to his. La is a preposition that means to. Wa means or is a possessive that means his, he, his, or it. In this context, it means his. How do you know that? Because his is right here in the red. All right. Yahaya. Yah is a preposition that means he. Haya means be, right? And then ha Zarai, right? Zarai means heir, seed, offspring, descendant, posterity, seed, fruit, plant, showing time, posterity. All right. And what the reason why a seed, you know, I mean, the reason why this is here is what this scripture, and we're gonna go into it as Sabbath service, but the reason why this is here is what we're about to go into is the law of a brother, right? And we're gonna go into it in a little bit more detail in Sabbath service, but this is talking about the law of a brother, right? Meaning if a brother had a wife and he passed away before giving his wife or before his wife rather could give your brother a child or a son rather, uh then that brother would have to uh give his wife a son. All right, so that's the law of a brother, and that's what we looking at right now. We looking at how the Most High looks at that. All right. So before we read that, let me see, Genesis chapter 28, verse 8. So we're going into the lineage of Jacob's children, and one of Jacob's children, Judah, you know what I mean, had a son. I believe his name was and he had a wife. And you know what I mean, because the Lord saw him, the Lord, he was wicked in the sight of the Lord. So the Most High, you know what I mean, took his life, right? And he didn't have a son, right? Or he didn't have a son. He didn't have a child. So Judah, you know what I mean, knowing the law of a brother, he sent uh he sent Onan, which was another one of his sons. He said, go into your brother's wife and marry her and raise up seed to your brother Judah, or to your brother right? And right now we're reading in verse 9 that he, you know what I mean, he knew that the child that he would have, it would be raised up to his brother. It wouldn't be his own. So he didn't want to have the child. So, you know what I mean, we're gonna see what happens. But that's why this word is here. Because the seed that will go into this wife, into Tamar, I believe the woman was, the seed that will go into her wouldn't be Oned. It will be raised up in the honor of Judah, or Slakia, It will be raised. It will be raised up to his brother. I mean, that's the law of a brother. All right. So Ha Zarai, the seed. So Zarai means seed, right? And your heir is your seed. Your heir is your child that comes from you. So when you you know what I mean, you have a son and you pass away, everything that you gained and everything that you have, the responsibility, the duties that you had as a father, you know what I mean, that's get passed down to your son. You know what I mean, whoever you appoint to be, you know what I mean, most responsible to be able to handle that duty. All right. So your seed is your heir. All right. So so Zerai means seed or heir in this context. And then ha at the beginning is a preposition. You can tell because your preposition comes before the root word. So ha at the beginning of the root word is a preposition meaning the. So the heir or the seed. All right. Next phrase, Salakia. Next phrase, wa haya. I believe we just we saw something similar, right? I believe earlier we saw Yahaya, right? Which would be he be, right? Wahaya. Wa is a preposition meaning and, like we saw before. I believe the first phrase. And then haya means to be or to come to pass, or well, here we go, to be, become, come to pass, exist, happen. All right. So wahaya. So and it came to pass. Right? Wahaya, and came to pass, right? Means when. Ba'a means to come, or to come in, or to go in, right? Al means to, right? These are all sight words. I mean, the last three phrases that I've just read, these are root words, and over repetition, these should easily become sight words, right? So that's why I didn't bother going into the concordance code. I will go now just to prove, you know what I mean, the point. Means if, when, though, like I said, in this context is when. Ba'a means to come, to go, to enter. All right. This is what it says here. He went in, he entered, he went in or came in or go in. All right. All means two, right? All is an easy one because it's used as like a conjunction. It's like used to join or to help a sentence flow, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? So all you'll see used a lot, right? So it's easy if you show up. I mean, that's the whole point. If you show up, these things will become repetitious to you and they'll become memory to you, just like tying your shoes. You know what I mean? At first, tying your shoes was the worst thing in the world, and you didn't know how to tie your shoes. You know what I mean? To the point where some of y'all brothers and sisters, you will fall out and cry because you didn't know how to tie your shoes. You know what I mean? I know my children, you know what I mean? They put on their shoes backwards every single time. I don't know how they do it, but you know what I mean? They put on their shoes backwards every single time. But over time, over repetition, you know what I mean? They're gonna get it. Just like you learn how to tie your shoes, where that was the worst thing in the world for you. Now you don't even think about it. That's gonna be it's the same thing with the Hebrew. If you just show up and do it. If you show up and put the work in, it's gonna become repetitious to you, and then you're gonna be able to recognize things. You're gonna be able to recognize sight words, and that's the whole point. This is your language. You know what I mean? This is your language. This is your culture. And who's gonna give a damn about our language and our culture more than us? You know what I mean? We claim to be priests and prophets. We claim to, you know what I mean, be the authority of, you know what I mean, teaching blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans the truth according to the Bible. You know, if you don't show up and learn the things that you need to learn so that you can teach your brothers and sisters what they need to learn, then, you know what I mean, it defeats the whole purpose. So if you show up, then it'll become second nature. It'll become repetitious, and then you'll be able to recognize these things, right? Which brings me to the next phrase, Ashath, right? Asha is the root word, right? Asha is the root word meaning wife. It's like your ak yawa, all right? It's the next phrase, ak yawa. Ak is the root word meaning brother, right? And I'm gonna skip to the last character, which is wa, which means he, his, or it, right? So ak is the root word, wa is the possessive meaning he, his, or it. So that just leaves this character in the middle, the ya. Remember, the ya is a buffer. I mean, you see it in between a root word and a possessive. It is used as a buffer. I mean, don't let that confuse you. I know if you don't understand it, it could easily confuse you. If you're not familiar with the concept, it could easily confuse you. But don't let that confuse you. That ya in the middle of a root word and a possessive, it just acts as a buffer. All right. Yeah, that's all that is. Lock you. The next phrase. Let's see. So the lock you. Let me know if you can hear me. All right. All right. So the next phrase is where we at? Washachaf. Right. So that wa. Well, let's see. This is a perfect example, right, of the four steps, right, and how it works. So this phrase right here, as a matter of fact, I don't know why I did that. Let me enlarge this. All right. So this is a perfect example. So this I'm not sure about. I've never seen this phrase. Again, when you're learning the language or when you're reading the language, even if there's a language that you've mastered and understand very well, there's going to be words that you don't understand. All right. There's no shame in that. But this is what you do when you come up into this, right? You just click the concordance code and it's going to reveal everything to you. Shachath, shachath. to destroy, to corrupt, to ruin, to spoil, right? To decay, to ruin, right? All right. So wa shachath, to ruin and ruined, right? Or he spoiled the ground, right? Let's see. Let me make sure. All right. So in the rule of the brother, right? We read it in English. So Genesis chapter 38 and verse 9. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass when he went in unto his brother's wife that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. So this brother didn't want to give seed to his brother. I mean, he didn't want to raise up a child like the law of a brother says in Deuteronomy the 25th chapter. I mean, again, we're gonna go into it in Sabbath service, but the law states that if your brother passes without raising up, without having a child, without having a son, then it is your duty as a brother to go into that brother's wife and raise up a child in that brother's name. You know what I mean? And Onan didn't want to do that. So instead of putting that seed in that woman where it belonged, he put that seed on the ground, which is the next word, aratazah. Aratazah, which is ground or earth. Right. So instead of putting that seed in that woman, he put that seed on the ground. All right. Next phrase, la balafia. All right. Let's see. I believe you might have seen me click on this earlier. I was just curious. I'm gonna click on it again. This is another example. This is a word that I've never seen before. It's not a word that I recognize off the top of my head. So you can use the same method, right? You can use the same method as we did before. Right? You click the concordance code and it's going to separate everything. So Balathia, Balathia means not, except, without, a failure of, not, except, without, unless, besides, because, not, until. So unless, right? So that's the word you want to focus on, or it's the easiest to. All of these words are true, but just for just for understanding purposes, unless, right? You see this word in the Bible all the time. Like you see in the examples over here. Well, this ain't really a good example. So, for example, I'll use the book. I'll use the example here in Genesis 38 and 9, just since we're here. All right. So, Onan spilled. Uh, Onan, instead of putting that seed in that woman, he put it on the ground because he didn't want to have a child with her in his brother's name. Right. So he did that in fear of, or in, unless, or instead of, right? Instead of raising up child to his brother, he spilled the seed on the ground. You'll see that a lot. Uh, less, just that's what less means. You know what I mean? So la balafia. Balafia is the root word, right? Balafia. Again, like I said before, uh, root words typically have 2 to 3 characters. Sometimes they can have 4. That's not very common, but the typical thing is 2 to 3, right? For the most part, that is 3. In rare cases as well, they can have 2, but the typical thing is 3. In this case, you see 4. All right. It's a lot. All right. So la balathia, right? Let's see. It's like Nathan. All right. Nathan just means to give, right? Nathan is a root word meaning give, right? You click this concordance code and it's going to tell you the same thing. Nathan, to give, right? To give, to put, to set, right? Zarai, we just talked about it. Zarai means seed. And then La Ak Yawa, right? La means two. Ak means brother. And then Wa means his. So to his brother. That Ya in the middle is a buffer between the root word and the possessive, right? So La Ak Yawa is to his brother. Ak Yawa, his brother. La Ak Yawa, to his brother. All right. Let's see. See what time it is. See where we at with it. All right. No sweat. All right. All right. So we'll leave it right there. I just wanted to go into that real quick just so we could see again. This language is real easy and we're using the same 4 steps. I'll go ahead and share the screen again. Share this tab. Boom. We're using the same 4 steps that we've always used, and you're always going to use the same 4 steps. All right. These same concepts. All right. So the first thing, if you're new to learning the Lashawan Qadash, what I would do is focus on learning your prepositions and possessives, because most of your phrases, like we just went over tonight, most of your phrases are just going to be root words surrounded by prepositions and possessives. And then after that, I will hone in on your tenses. You know what I mean? Hone in on your doing tense and its function when it's used. Hone in on your uh pluralization tenses and when it's used, how it's used. Uh, hone in on your servile tenses when it's used, things like that. You know what I mean, etc. I mean, all your tenses. And then once you got a handle on those, then you can start adding these more complex concepts to your belt, which will be your stems, your stem formations, which you kind of touched on last week. I mean, I believe there's 7 stem formations, which is going to have different indicators of those stem formations. Then you could start to go into your past tense, present tense, future tense. You can start to go into these more, a little bit more complex concepts and add those things to your tool belt. But the more concepts that you can add to your tool belt, the more you can understand the Lashawan Qadash and retain more moving forward. All right. So with that, I'll say I madium, which means to stand. Give a courtesy salute to the brothers. Visual Madam Shabbat. I madium, Barat, Yahaba Shim Yah Shabrak Yad Matat, Sar, turn to face sisters, give courtesy salute to the sisters. Visual Madam Shabbat. I madium, Barat, Yahweh Shmar Latam Bashim Yah Shah. Yad Matah. Blessed is me.